to relax, Mrs. Peretti.
The film begins with Happy Nick having a good time with his wife Maggie, when suddenly she experiences a sharp pain in her chest and she's immediately hospitalized. Following this, Nick is overwhelmed at work and needs some help in taking care of the kids and cleaning the house, so he visits a tech company known as Cobol. The company is responsible for creating highly intelligent humanoid robots that help humans in taking care of redundant tasks and sometimes even the heavy tasks. As Nick looks around with his daughter, he's approached by one of the Cobol workers, who introduces him to a robot that could fit into his daily life. Nick turns around to ask his daughter's opinion, but couldn't find her. In panic, he searches everywhere. Meanwhile, little Isla frantically walks up to one of the household robots making some dishes and asks if she could make her some lasagna, to which the robot acknowledges. At that moment, Nick finds them, scared, and hugs his daughter, warning her not to wander around like that in public. However, the humanoid robot tells Nick that she could help keep an eye on little Isla and also make her some lasagna, just like she requested. With his daughter's cute eyes begging him to bring her home, Nick is convinced. The next day, Nick is struggling with his chores as a father and also struggles to keep up with work. When the robot is delivered to his doorstep, Nick takes her on a tour around the house. She notices the step banisters are shaky and promises to fix it, explaining that since Mr. Nick is her primary user, her priorities are to make his life easier. At that moment, his daughter gets ready for school and asks what they could call the robot. Following her favorite book, Isla gives her the name Alice. Nick takes his daughter to school, leaving Alice to do her household work as she's been programmed to do. When Nick gets home with his daughter, he's amazed by how clean his home is. Alice then proceeds to make dinner, making lasagna just like Isla has wanted. But after tasting it, she feels that the taste was not up to her mom's. A short time later, the little baby starts crying, causing Nick to call him a burden. Alice suggests she takes him to bed, but Nick tells her not to worry about it. That night, while she recharges, Isla grabs a chair to pick up a chocolate bar and ends up tripping. Fortunately, Alice was quick to catch Isla, but she manages to bruise herself. Later, Nick goes to thank her for saving his daughter, Alice, but finds her patching herself up. Nick tries his best to maintain his composure as he offers Alice some of Maggie's clothes to change into, just in case. He also asks if she might need a repair, but she assures him that everything is alright, as she reveals her patch to show her injury is already healed. The next day, the whole family visits Maggie at the hospital. She's happy to see her family and, at the same time, sad that she's sick and can't be with them. Upon seeing Alice, she questions Nick, thinking that he was supposed to bring an English butler to take care of the kids rather than a lady robot, feeling jealous. But Nick assures her that even if there's anything, he'd rather have an affair with a human than some bot. While working at the construction site, Nick is sad to learn that most of the workers would be replaced by humanoid robots, including his best friend Monty. However, the manager insists, telling him that the robots are more efficient and could finish the work 5x faster than any average human. Nick still pleads with him, saying that the job is their only means of survival, but the manager assures him that during the replacement, he won't be affected since they would only need at least one human to supervise, so he shouldn't worry about it. But the news still saddens Nick, thinking about his sick wife who needs a heart transplant and other bills. He had no other options but to succumb to the objectives. As an AI robot capable of progressive learning, Alice watches how Nick tries his best to take care of his kids, even after a day of hard work at the construction site. Later, Alice meets with Nick in his garage, where he expresses his frustrations about the replacement of his friends at work by robots, stressing that most of them are too old to look for jobs or change their career. Alice stresses that maybe he shouldn't see AI as a replacement but as an advancement, as he could have hired a human nanny to do her own job, but instead, there she is. She also mentions that the robots, just like her, don't get tired, as they are more efficient, and their only objective is to fulfill their programmed task. While Nick watches a movie on the television, he asks Alice to join him to experience the film. However, Alice mentions that she already knew everything about the movie, but Nick tells Alice to forget everything she knows about the movie because he wants her to experience it afresh. Alice then asks Nick, as her primary user, if wiping her memory so she could experience the movie just like he once would make him happy. All he has to do was to press the reset button at the back of her neck, not realizing that this would be the biggest mistake he'd ever make. Nick receives a call from his wife, telling him they've finally gotten her another heart for transplanting. The family is happy to learn that Maggie would soon join them at home after the heart surgery, but before the surgery, Maggie asks everyone to leave so she could have a private moment with Alice. After they leave, with tears in her eyes, doubting if she would make it after the surgery, She begs Alice to take care of Nick, because sometimes when the burden gets too much, he tends to drown himself in alcohol. While they wait for the heart implant to arrive, suddenly the doctor receives an urgent call. Worried, Nick asks what the problem is. His life crumbles when he learns that the flight bringing the heart implant couldn't make it because of the heavy storm. Maggie gets really emotional and tells Nick she wants to be alone. Nick gets home and starts to drown himself in alcohol. Alice comes to talk him out of it, but he keeps complaining about how a mere weather change could make his wife lose her life. Nick gets really mad and tries to hurt himself, but he's stopped by Alice. He touches her hand and is shocked to learn that she has a pulse and also a heartbeat. She explains that although she has all the human-like features, but lacks the complexities of a human life, like emotions and feelings. At that moment, Alice approaches Nick and starts touching him in the sensitive area. He tries pushing her away, but she insists, saying that he's too stressed and needs to relieve himself. But Nick couldn't fathom betraying his loyalty to his wife, so he leaves the garage. The next day, Nick gets to work only to find the humanoid robots have taken over the construction, but he gets to supervise their work. When he gets home, he finds the family photo of his wife missing in the album. He asks Alice about it, and she admits she deleted it, saying that whenever Isla sees the picture of her, it makes her sad. This seems to trouble Nick, as he asks her to re-upload the photos back. Later that night, Nick and the construction workers are having a drink at a bar. Monty expresses his anger about their replacement by the robots and suggests that they visit the construction site so he could pick up some of his tools he forgot. Upon reaching the site, Nick had a bad feeling about Monty's intentions, so he asked. Finally, Monty reveals that he intends to destroy the robots for destroying their lives. However, Nick doesn't want to get involved since he still works in the construction, and he's the only one that has the passcode to the robot's chamber. Monty guessed the passcode as the birth date of his daughter, and it unlocks. Monty grabs a wrench and proceeds to smash the robots, destroying them. That night, Nick gets home to wash up the dents from the construction, and Alice approaches him, sensing his distress. She tries once again to help him ease out, however, Nick tries to avoid her, but he gets pulled back. Alice seems to possess the ability to change her voice to Maggie's, making her irresistible, and together they proceed to do the dirty. Before taking Isla to school the next morning, Nick pleads with Alice not to let last night repeat itself, saying that it's wrong, and he really loves his wife. When he gets to work that morning, the manager accuses him of being involved in the recent destruction. During the altercation, Nick gets a call again from his wife's site, saying but he denied knowing heart, and the heart transplant is successful. The manager assures him that Maggie he will be finally comes home to her family if he's eventually found when it's time for dinner. It's clear that Maggie still struggles with her situation, and Alice decides to help. That night, Monty comes to check up on his best friend, but later spills the beans, revealing that the construction company is pressing charges against him for the destruction they caused at the site, and believes that Nick ratted him out. But Nick denies it, saying he would never, but Monty doesn't believe him, and they start a brawl. Nick is easily outmatched. Monty grabs a bottle and is about to smash Nick's head, when Alice holds his hand, crushing the bottle with it and pushing him away. Monty threatens to announce his involvement unless he brings himself in as an accomplice. Nick is angry at the way she almost killed the man, but Alice reminds him that she's programmed to protect her primary user, and what she did was in self-defense. That night, Alice takes matters into her own hands and pays Monty a visit in his house, telling him that threatening the well-being of his owner is not within her protocol, and she has to protect her primary user from any harm. Monty pulls out his gun, but Alice was more stronger, and she easily beats him, and is about to end him at that moment. Another robot stops Alice, although she's clearly abused, but insists that Monty is his primary user, and wouldn't let her do any harm. However, Alice shoots the robot before finishing off Monty. Nick gets to work the next day, and was about to tell his boss everything, but the boss tells him about the death of his friend, and he's clearly heartbroken. Meanwhile, Maggie is in a bathtub, and the book she was reading drops on the floor. She tries to reach, but her scar wouldn't allow her. Alice tries to help her, and she tells her that her body is becoming weak, and couldn't satisfy Nick. At that moment, Maggie realizes that her husband was having an affair with the humanoid robot. And when Nick gets home, he and his wife had a heated argument. Meanwhile, Alice takes care of the baby, but in a funny way, Isla runs to call her dad, but Alice blocks them from saving their baby. Maggie is able to come in through the roof, distracting Alice. This gives Nick the opportunity to break down the door, knocking Alice out, and saves his son. In the aftermath, Maggie tells Nick to deal with the damages while she takes the children to the hospital, as she doesn't want to see him for now. Alice is taken in by the Kobolds technicians for some examinations, unknown to them that she's been able to bypass their protocol, and upload herself to the cloud, while merging herself to another robot in the same room. She swiftly takes out the technicians, now with 2 bodies. The first body goes to a bar where she meets Nick, while the other one goes to the hospital where his family are. Alice reveals that she wants to relieve him from all his burdens by taking his family out of his life. Nick tries to follow along as he passionately touches her, and quickly disconnects her brain box. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the second Alice has disconnected all the robots in the hospital, and when the only available human nurse comes around, she kills her, while taking her key card, so she could move around swiftly. Maggie is able to hide from her, but not for long. As she was about to make her way with the ambulance, she's dragged out, and tossed away by Alice. She's about to tear her heart when Nick pulls up, and she kicks Alice, as Nick smashes her into another car, but he's knocked unconscious. Alice is still alive, and tries to finish off Maggie, but Nick intervenes. Maggie quickly grabs an object, using it to kill her. The family is finally free, and Alice is taken to the lab for extermination. Unfortunately, the technicians end up connecting her to the server once more, and she's once more ready for another round of torment. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos.